Hi guys, welcome to part 2 of setting up a Windows Server 2008 box. In this video we're just going to cover up setting up Active Directory, the types of configuration and settings you want depending on your requirements, and just a general overview of sort of the information and the Active Directory services, and how it's obviously how it's installed and how it's configured. I did something really silly earlier. I actually recorded the video, two videos without my mic on. It was actually on mute, which was rather embarrassing. But I'm just going to show you guys what I did up until the time I realized. So all I did was I opened up Start, I went to Administrative Tools and Server Manager. And I just did a straightforward setup of a new role. I actually just went to add role. I clicked next and I selected Active Directory Domain Services, or ADDS. And what that's actually going to do is when you set up a new server, that's going to prompt that it needs to install Net Framework 3.5.1, I believe. So you just select that alongside the role, and once you click next, it's going to say that it's going to install Active Directory Domain Services, and it's going to install Net Framework 3.5. So all we pretty much did was click next, check that those were going to be installed, and we clicked install, and those installed without a reboot needed. So we're just going to go from the time of that, really, because that's as far as I got. So once you go onto Administrative Tools, you'll see some new tools in here, some new access given. So we've got Active Directory and Administrative Center, Active Directory Domains and Trusts, Active Directory module for Windows PowerShell, Active Directory Sites and Services, Active Directory Users and Computers, which is probably what you're most familiar with. However, you can see when opening this, it's going to give you an error message that it's just not configured at all. If we just have a look here, see, we can't manage a domain because we haven't configured this as a domain controller yet. What you do actually need to do is, after installing Active Directory Domain Services, you need to install sort of it's the interface, and you need to configure this domain controller as either a DC in an existing forest, or you're going to create a brand new domain. So we're just going to open up, as you can see there, I did just a run command, and it's DC promo. I'm going to type that into the description just so you guys are sure. So it's just DC promo, hit enter, and up will pop this wizard. This wizard helps you install Active Directory Domain Services, ADDS, on this server, making the server an Active Directory domain controller, which is what we want. So we're just going to ignore advanced mode installation for the purposes of this video. So we're going to click next. It's just going to get some security settings and also some information about legacy servers on your network. So for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to completely ignore this. However, do feel free to read up on this information should you fancy it or should you need to. So we're just going to click next, and it's now going to ask us how we want to configure our domain controller. Now we have two options. We have existing forest or create a new domain in a new forest. Basically, if you only have this standalone server in your network, you'll most likely want to create it as a new domain in a new forest. If you haven't got any domain on your network, the chances are you want to create it as a new domain in a new forest. So what that's going to actually do is you're going to select it, and you're going to go next, and then you're going to be asked to type in a domain name to get started. In the case of existing forest, what it's basically going to be asking is, do we want to add this domain controller into our existing forest as possibly a subdomain? For the purposes of this video, I'm not going to go too far into existing forests, and I believe anyone probably watching this video will, if they have a forest and a domain already on their network, they should be able to configure it without an issue. So we're just going to go for the short and simple route of creating a new domain in the new forest. So it's going to ask us to type in a FQDN. Now you ask, what is a FQDN? FQDN stands for fully qualified domain name, and it's going to be basically just a domain name in your forest. So whenever you access a server, or if you use it for DFS file replication, that's really going to be your domain name. You can see an example there, corp.contoso.com. Contoso is what Microsoft use for all their practice materials. So if you buy any of the Microsoft books, you'll see that domain name as an example. So usually a domain can be listed as let's take a example. What's a quite funny example? I can't really think of anything. We'll say chocolate. I don't know why I had that on my mind. But say your company was called Chocolate, Chocolate Shops .local. You could call it chocolate shops.local. It could be chocolateshops.com. But I usually stick to .local, because remember, this domain will only be local within your network. You're not going to be accessing this domain via externally, so it's not like a website. Don't go down the route of thinking it's like a website or something because you've got .com. That's just an example given by Microsoft there. So I'm just going to click next, and it's going to start initiating that. It's verifying the name. So we'll just give that a moment. It shouldn't be too long, and I don't feel the need to cut the video. There we go. Okay, basically forest functional level is basically you need to select your forest functional level, providing if you have any sort of legacy servers in your network, because as features get added, domains will change. So say for instance we had a company, and the company had an old Windows 2000 server sitting in their back office, and it was still on the domain and functional, in which case we'd select Windows 2000, because we don't want to start giving this DC any more functions than this Windows 2000 box, otherwise it'll just cause issues. So basically, since this is a new server and since we don't have any other servers in our network, we're going to select Windows Server 2008 R2. So we want as many features as possible. And also there's no need to select Windows Server 2003 if we haven't got any Windows Server 2003 boxes in our network. So we can just go ahead and select Windows Server 2008 R2. So it's just going to examine the DNS, just show that we actually do have DNS on our network somewhere. This could be external, or in this case DNS is actually installed on the server itself. Select additional options is DNS server. Yep, okay. Delegation first can't be created, because you can click OK on this, and it's just going to ask whereabouts we want the database files actually stored on our system. I know some people have actually configured these log files and the sysvol file on other drives, but I don't see any particular need for that. Often with a lot of companies, these folders here are left in their standalone locations, so you would in fact leave them on the C drive in the default places. I'll get around to describing what these database folders include in a later video. So basically this restore mode administrator account is different from the domain administrator account. So it's just going to ask us for, similar to sort of a encryption recovery accounts, whereby if all goes wrong you have some access to the data. So in this case you'll have access to the database. So probably the best practice is possibly listing this as your domain administrator passwords, whatever that may be. In my case it is password 1. If you haven't got a domain a domain set up, you will want to list it as what you are going to select the domain administrator's password to be. So we've just gone for a test there. That's absolutely fine. So it's just going to go through what's going to be set up. Are there any additional options? Create DNS. Yes, it's just going to print all the settings we've configured here, and we're just going to select next because we're happy for that to run. So that's just going to configure, and it's most likely going to ask us for a reboot on finishing. So I'm just going to skip the video up until that time and when that's completed. So I've just completed the Active Directory install, and that's completed without any errors at all. The install will actually require you to reboot on completion. So we're just going to log into the virtual machine, and you can see that Chocolate Shops /administrator has been created, and it's now going to, the actual server is going to ask you to log into the domain. So we'll just log in. Username and password is not correct. We're just going to use password 1. So we're going to use the password which we entered when we entered the password for the recovery agent, if that makes sense. So the password you entered during the Active Directory install, that's going to allow you into the system. So we're now logged on to the domain, and if we actually have a look here at the system itself now, it's actually automatically been added onto the domain. So you can see here it's got the random generated computer name .chocolateshops.local. Now we have now we can see that we have several different functions added. We now have group policy, so we can manage all the users' features they have access to, etc. And we can make all those configuration changes. Now if we open up Active Directory users and computers, it will actually access our domain, and we can actually view the database now without any errors at all, and we can start configuring all of our OUs and all of our user accounts, and anything you shall need in terms of like distribution groups or security groups. We can start configuring those. So really that's everything, and it's certainly everything in terms of a new server build in possibly a new company without a infrastructure. That's just the sort of standard domain setup you'd go for on server 2008. So hopefully that helps, guys. I'm going to go through setting up OUs, setting up bulk setting up user accounts, security groups, distribution groups. I'm going to go through a lot of AD things. I'm also going to, if I have time, I'm going to go through the back end of Active Directory to really learn about how it runs, just sort of what services it's running on, etc. And sort of what behind the scenes, what there is behind the scenes. So as I say, if you have any questions, do leave them in the comment box. But I think that's everything for today, guys. Okay, I will now end the video. Thanks.